The scanner was infallible. It had tested 10,000 species across 47 standard metrics, and it had never once produced an error code. Yet, for the last 3 minutes, the diagnostic bay had been filled with a sound like a small animal being explained geometry. What the machine was currently processing defied every calibration I had performed in my 3 cycles as a staff cadet. I checked the moisture levels of my primary ocular lens, but the readout remained the same. The marks she left on the glass still haven't faded. You should probably see what happened to the technician who tried to scrub them off. That same dry, calcium smell had filled the bay 3 hours earlier, back when I still believed our sensors were gods. Before the testing began, the air had been heavy with the scent of ozone and the rhythmic clicking of VORTH shells as the senior staff prepared for a routine certification. I stood by the primary console, my own chitinous shell vibrating at a low, audible buzz. Confusion is a physical frequency for my people, and mine was currently rattling my internal plates. Beneath the observation deck, the human candidate waited. Alara Vance sat on a standard carbon alloy stool, her spine straightened, her eyes fixed on a vintage analog watch strapped to her wrist. Occasionally, she glanced at the sweeping second hand. I recorded the action as a minor temporal obsession, likely a coping mechanism for the impending stress of the Class 8 certification. In her right hand, she turned a small, dusty cylinder of white calcium. Chalk, she had called it when she arrived. Sormaki, Class 8 minimum. K-Revius his shell resonating with the high-sync hum of total confidence. As the Academy's rating champion, he looked down at Alara from his 7'9" height, his 6 legs articulating with practiced, predatory grace. She is a Class 8 by technicality of her pilot's license. Nothing more. The machine will find her limits within the first 5 minutes. Alara looked up and offered a slow, wide yawn that exposed her molars. To avoid this sudden expansion of the jaw was a sign of severe respiratory distress or oxygen starvation. I gripped my data pad tighter, wondering if I should call for a medical drone. Is this the part where I panic? Ilares, her voice flat. I missed that briefing. You won't need a briefing once the scatter engages, the administrator replied from the high days. A sense of amused anticipation radiated from her. The system is designed to find the truth of your biology. It does not accept excuses. Fair enough, Ilar said, standing up and tucking the chalk into her pocket. Let's see if the machine can handle a general competence check. The first phase was the strength metric. The scanner's voice, a cold synthesis of 1,000 harmonic tones. Felderun. Apply maximum force to the primary sensor plate. Alara walked to the obsidian-colored plate and tapped it with her index finger. A soft clink echoed across the console. 3 red lights flickered simultaneously. ARR. FORCINSUFFICINTFORCOIBRATION. You said maximum. Alara noted, her expression unchanging. That was my maximum for a Tuesday. K-Rev-VUSS shell clicked in sharp agitation. He stepped toward the console, his wrist spurs extending an inch from their armored sheaths. The human is mocking the technology. Recalibrate the dampeners and increase the stimulus threshold. She cannot be allowed to bypass the metrics through sloth. Adjusting now, I replied, my shell buzzing so loudly it was beginning to interfere with my own auditory sensors. I bumped the sensitivity up to Tier 10, a level usually reserved for freeze-fired bone breakers. Test 2, the machine announced. Speed metric. React to the visual stimulus. A series of high-intensity plasma flares erupted in the testing field, moving at speeds that would dazzle a Crowl X in mid-flight. Ilara she didn't even blink. She simply stood there, checking her watch again. NORESBON city CT. I saw then, Alara said when the flares died down. I just didn't care. They weren't going to hit me, so why waste the energy? Behind the glass, I realized my earlier assessment was wrong. This wasn't respiratory failure or a temporal obsession. The human was breaking the most advanced diagnostic tool in the academy by simply refusing to acknowledge its importance. The speed metric had frozen the administrator's smile. But K-Revius was no longer amused. His wrist spurs retracted with a sharp, metallic click that signaled the end of his patience. In Vortiage culture, a warrior's shell must be polished to a mirror sheen before a test to reflect the machine's perfection. The dull, matte finish of Alara's athletic gear was an insult that had finally started to chafe. Behind the glass, I felt my internal plates vibrate. The human pilot was 8 years deep into competitive athletics, a record of 47 events with 0 losses. And our scanner was currently treating her like a malfunctioning piece of furniture. It couldn't process a resting athlete who optimized her heartbeat for efficiency rather than performance. Initiate the endurance and pain threshold composite, the chief engineer commanded. His voice broadcast through the bay. He had arrived along with the medical chief, both drawn by the escalating error reports. The machine's 47 tests have a 100% accuracy rate. This anomaly must be corrected. As you wish. I buzzed, my digits blurring over the tactile interface. The chamber temperature dropped to a level that would frost the lungs of a VORTH, while the floor began to emit a high-frequency bioelectric pulse designed to provoke an involuntary muscle spasm. It was a test of pure, agonizing stasis. Ilara lay down on the floor. Within 90 seconds, her respiratory rate plummeted. V-I-Tole, I-L-S-I-G-N-S, I-N-D-I-C-I-Tries. Chesnappy. I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. To my people, the yawn was a sign of distress. But this complete cessation of alertness in the face of pain was a biological impossibility. I had misinterpreted her fatigue for failure. Wake her. K-Revius roared, his resonance hum turning into a jagged snarl. She mocks the sacred metrics. The machine didn't wait for my command. Driven by the system's own internal logic to find a breaking point, it skipped to the final combat response protocol. A plasma arc welder, usually reserved for hull repair, descended from the ceiling on a mechanical arm. It hummed with a lethality that surpassed our light-honed safety ceiling, the air ionizing into a purple haze. Ellara didn't jump. She didn't even stand up all the way. Reaching into her bag, she pulled out a standard issue data pad. She used her data pad as a shield against the plasma arc. The purple beam splashed against the composite plastic, turning the screen into a molten slurry. But Ellara held it with a steady, one-handed grip. She looked bored. The machine speakers let out a final, distorted screech before the entire console went dark. Silence, heavy and suffocating, reclaimed the bay. Before anyone could speak, Ellara pulled the piece of chalk from her pocket. She leaned forward and traced a single, thick white line across the scanner's primary lens. Broken, she said, her voice cutting through the ozone. The medical chief stared at his readout in horror. Human bone density was rated at 1.5 grams per cubic centimeter, while our scanner's internal sensors were capped at 1.2. She hadn't been failing the tests. She had been breaking the machine by simply existing within it. Is there a second machine? Ellara asked, checking her watch. I have a real training session in an hour. The Academy reviewed the results that evening. They retired the scanner. They retired the technician. They promoted her. In that order. The chalk marks remain on the lens of Unit 7. Leo Washoth. The maintenance crew stopped trying after the third solvent failed to lift the white pigment. Under the dim emergency lights, the marks looked like a scar reminder that some things cannot be quantified. The next training session began 3 hours later. Ellara was there, napping on a bench while the new prototype was wheeled in. The machine beeped once. It saw a fearful sound that echoed in the vast, empty bay.